Hey everyone, I'm finally back to make another video on this channel. It's been a long time since I made a video for you guys. And this video in particular is going to be my top 10 reads of 2010. With a couple of honorable mentions just thrown in there. So let's get started. The first book I want to talk about is an honorable mention on my list, and it is the Evernight Academy series by Claudia Gray. I think this series is very underrated. It's a great supernatural romance read. The sequel is even better. I know the first book was kind of meh for me, but the sequel was so much better, and it had so many good twists. And this is just kind of the setup for the story, so I still, you need to read this book too, but the sequel is just amazing, and this series is so good. I really wish that more people would get into it. So yeah, Evernight by Claudia Gray. So that's the only honorable mention, and now we're moving on to my actual list. Number 10 on my list is Leaving Paradise by Simone Elquez. Leaving Paradise was an amazing romance read by an amazing romance author. Simone Elquez is probably one of the best authors I've read this year. She is just so amazing. I love her characters. I love her writing style. I pretty much love everything about her. And this story was just so good, so thought-provoking, and it was just so amazing. If you haven't read Leaving Paradise yet, you should definitely pick this up because it is just so good. Number 9 on my list is Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. Hush Hush is a supernatural romance, and it talks about angels, and it is just so good. What I love about this book is that it adds so much suspense and mystery in one book, and it's just so good. I love it, and the writing style is great. It's a debut author. Becca Fitzpatrick is so amazing. I cannot wait to read the sequel, Crescendo. I have it, I just haven't read it yet. I plan on reading that in 2011. But this book was just so good and such a quick read. It was so fast-paced and awesome, and I just loved it. It was so good. Number 7 on my list was Carrie by Stephen King. Carrie is the first book that Stephen King ever wrote, and basically it's a supernatural horror book, but I would say this is less a horror book and more a coming-of-age story. Carrie was just such a great character, and this was such a sad book and such a great read. It's so thought-provoking and so good, and I love the way Stephen King writes. He's one of the best authors I've ever read. If you haven't read any Stephen King, then you are crazy, and you're missing out on one of the best authors of the past 30 years or 40 years. Number 7 on my list is Paper Towns by John Green. This book really was just so amazing. I loved it because the author, John Green, has this really unique writing style that appealed to me, and I could really relate with a lot of things that happened in this book. I think that more teenagers and younger adults would enjoy this book more, but it was so hilarious. I laughed my head off. It was just such a great book, and I love the ending. It's such a great novel. If you haven't read anything by John Green yet, you definitely should, because this is amazing. Number 6 on my list, I'm just going to count the series, and that is the Crank and Glass series by Ellen Hopkins. Again, Ellen Hopkins is one of my top favorite authors now. She is so amazing. I just love her writing style. She writes in verse, and at first I thought that, verse would be more poetry than anything, but really it was just written in that style, and it was so easy to understand, and it wasn't really like poetry at all. It was more like it was just written in, the normal writing style. I think that's called prose. I don't remember exactly, but it was just so good, so thought-provoking, and so great, and I just love it. I can't say enough about Ellen Hopkins. She is one of the best authors of the decade. She is just so amazing. Number 5 on my list is The Hunger Games Trilogy by Suzanne Collins. This was the first book I read in 2010, and I am so glad that I started off the year reading this book. It was just so good. The whole book was a thrill ride till the end, and the characters were amazing. And this book really introduced me to the really awesome female characters in YA literature, and it really opened my eyes to YA and what YA can be. And I really definitely recommend this series to everyone. It is so amazing, and I plan on reading more dystopian series and novels in 2011. Number 4 on my list is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This book is absolutely phenomenal. The writing style is amazing, the story is beautiful and beautifully written, and just so amazing. I just loved it so much. I thought that maybe the size would put it off. It's not that big, it's like 400 or so pages, but to me that was a big book when I was reading this year, because I didn't really like reading until recently, really. And it was just, I cannot say enough things about this book to describe it to you guys. You just have to read it for yourself. There's just so much in this book. And I cried at the end of this book. It was so beautiful, and it's just an amazing read. There's so much in this book, and I can't believe the author fit it in 400 pages, because it's just so phenomenal. Number 3 on my list is Impulse by Ellen Hopkins. This was the first book I read by Ellen Hopkins ever, and I am so glad I started with this one. Basically, I started with this one because Gina from YA Fiction We're Freaks said this was her favorite one, so I started with it, and it, to this day, is my favorite so far of the books that I've read by her. It is just so amazing. I love the character Tony. He is my favorite character in this book. He was hilarious and awesome, and he was just so cool, and I loved him. He was awesome. And also the whole, you know, powerful themes that are in this book, it's just so good. And I can't even start to describe it. It's just so good. You have to read it for yourself. I love this book. Number 2 on my list is Perfect Chemistry by Simone L. Glass. When I first started reading this book, I didn't want to pick it up because of the cheesy cover. I thought this cover was way too cheesy, and I thought it would be a stupid romance novel, because I had read Twilight before, and I was like, oh, this is going to be just that same stupid romance YA novel. Let me just say I was completely ignorant, and this book is phenomenal. This book made me realize that not all YA romance novels are crap. That's what I said, crap. Because this one is just 200 billion times better than a lot of the YA romance novels that I've read anyway. And it's just so good. It kind of takes the Romeo and Juliet story and puts it in a modern setting. And it tells the story through both characters' perspectives, which is really awesome, and it adds to the depth of the story, and it adds to the depth of the characters as well. The characters in this book were great. Alex and Brittany were both amazing main characters. I loved them both, and it was just so amazing. If you haven't read this book yet, you're missing out on one of the best romance novels ever written in YA literature. And my number 1 pick for 2010 is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. And when I say this is number 1, it's number 1. And I don't just mean the top reads of 2010. Because this book is my number 1 favorite book of all time out of every single book that I've read in my entire life. That's how amazing this book is. It is beautiful, thought-provoking, well-written. The characters are all so well developed, and I loved every single one of them. I cried my eyes out in this book, and I read this book so fast, despite it being an adult novel, and I know adult novels can be written quickly too, but this one was just so wonderful and so amazing. Basically take every single adjective that is positive, it's about this book. If you haven't read this book yet, you haven't read a good book. Okay, maybe that was taking a little too far, but this is seriously the best book I've ever read. And that is why it's number 1 on my top 10 list of 2010, and also my top book of all time. So those are my top 10 reads of 2010. Hope you all enjoyed this, and please tell me your top 10 reads in the comments below, or make a video response if you want. I would love to see it. And I will see you guys next time.